It's quite an honor for me to be here today with such incredible change makers and also you young leaders who are really either at the beginning of your journey to change making, right in the middle of it, but hopefully not the end. For me, I always think about shaping the future with questions. Oftentimes we can get overwhelmed with thinking, what actions should we take? But true progress actually starts with asking questions. And that is exactly how I've seen my journey. From being an immigrant in my early years from India, my family and I moved to Montreal, where we didn't know the language, didn't know the people, and like many immigrants, didn't even know what our future had in store for us. But we started with the belief in the community around us, with faith that this country would be able to support us and the systems that were designed for us. I, as a young child, always imagined the world would be perfect. My parents were so happy to be in Canada. I thought, how could Canada not be perfect? But I quickly realized that systems are designed to be perfect for only some people. And unfortunately, I came across this reality when I was in high school, and my friends started missing school. I wondered why that was. Why was it only menstruators, only girls that were missing out on school? And I quickly learned that the stigma I had come across during middle school of hiding the menstrual products underneath our shirts was actually a much larger systemic problem. And this was the problem of period poverty. So at 16 years old, I did a lot of research about why my friends were suffering with period poverty and how something as basic as accessing menstrual hygiene products could hinder someone's ability and attainment to education. This is when I learned that 1 in 5 girls in Canada were actually missing school annually because of this inaccessibility. So at 16, with no talent, only education and knowledge and passion, I put forth a provision to provide free menstrual hygiene products in school washrooms in my district. Now, this was quite a big challenge, as you can imagine. It was very difficult to convince a lot of the colleagues who were much more senior than I was, who were working in school board systems and governance for many years. And I kept thinking, how come we don't have these products in our school washrooms? It sounds so simple, it seems so simple, but why is it so difficult? And in asking these questions, in educating my colleagues, I was actually able to get this provision passed. And the Minister of Education invested and started a partnership with Shoppers Drug Mart to get these products in every school washroom across the province. Now that was... Thank you so much. Now that was the beginning of my journey for education governance and what I saw as education and health being two sides of the same coin. In my education, my own education, I was studying medical sciences at Western University, and I saw the dichotomy and relationship between education and health. How having access to health products, as we saw, can hinder education attainment, but also having education around your health can improve society and economies. And this is what led me to be a part of the United Nations High-Level Committee for Education, where I was selected from over 10,000 global candidates to be the sole youth representative. Now this was quite an honor for me, and I realized that that seat at the table was not my own. It was not only the seat for the 10,000 other candidates, but for the young people across the world. There's 1.2 billion of us. Actually, I think it's 1.8 billion now. So that came with great responsibility. And in my role, I decided that instead of occupying just one chair, we should bring in more chairs for young people. So I worked with the UN's Education, Science, and Culture Organization to start a youth network in which we got a lot of applicants, a lot of young people who were working on the ground to make change in their local communities. And from these very inspiring and amazing change makers on the grassroots, we developed a council of around 100 members from so many countries were represented in this council, and we led consultations on the ground to hear from young people about what are the realities that they face in their own education. And this can be the formal sector of schooling, the informal, but also the non-formal means of education. We worked with the UN Youth Office to even get young people reimbursements to hop on their Zooms and laptops and iPads and pay for the Wi-Fi that they had to use during that time, so we can really hear from young people who are not usually at the UN table. And after consulting around over 450,000 young people, we were able to compile all the recommendations into a large declaration that I had the honor of presenting to the UN Secretary General during the UN General Assembly in 2022. Declarations are great. We see a lot of times member states, UN member states, will even adopt some of these recommendations and encourage the adoption of them through media. But saying is one thing and walking the talk is another. So this is where I had to rely on some of my governance skills and think about, how do we know what counts? If you don't count, then you don't know if it counts. And what do I mean by that? Metrics are really important. That's something that my formal education also taught me, and I'm sure you are learning that in school as well. If you don't track, then governments won't invest. And that's why I worked with the members of the UN Council that I was on to be able to champion two indicators, one on digital literacy and the other on climate literacy and greening education. Again, this was a daunting challenge. Across our table, we had all the different countries and states represented, so convincing some countries was much more difficult than the other, but in the end we were able to unanimously adopt them. And so that means that country leaders have to invest in these because they will be marked on a report card globally based on their progress for these two metrics. And honestly, if you ask me what is the one thing that made a big difference in the way that I see the world, it won't even be the conversations I had in the boardrooms. It would really be the children that I met during the tours that I was on in schools and people that I saw from different communities. And that really kept inspiring the work that I wanted to do back home with the Hope Sisters, and I'm happy to talk more about that after as well. But we were able to expand our organization much more globally as well after I kept visiting these different communities, and we really focus on health and education for children across the world and how those metrics really inspire hope and healthy communities. But overall, if there's one message I can leave you with, is to start being more bolder and asking questions. In this day and age, it's really easy to post, it's really easy to take action and assume that you have knowledge about something. But it takes a braver soul to be able to ask the questions that make systems and people uncomfortable. Thank you.